Yeah, I think we're all looking for ways to alleviate the stress and frustration of change. There are ways, and I think that's what you've provided us with, just an outline of how do we move things forward in a positive direction and bringing people along, and that there are different stages of change, and how the communication and bringing people together to make that change positive is an important part of how an organization can be successful.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage. Welcome to another episode of Culture Change RX. This is Sue Tetzlaff, and I am here with Ben Davis, President and CEO at Glencoe Regional Health. And he is going to be a featured guest over actually the next couple of years of the podcast. And we're going to do this. We're going to sit down on about a quarterly basis because his organization, GRH, has decided to start an initiative called the Experience Initiative. And we're going to chronicle the journey that his organization is going to go on. And we're going to do that in this podcast format every quarter or so. And so you'll get to go along for the ride and hear what's happening at his organization and the progress that it's making. And so I'm going to, with that general introduction to what we're up to, I'm going to let Ben introduce himself, his organization, and a little bit about his initiative, and then we're going to get into the meat of the episode.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, Sue. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you over the last couple of months. But I'm Ben Davis, the President and CEO at Glencoe Regional Health. We are a 25-bed critical access hospital with a 108-bed long-term care facility, as well as a 40-apartment independent living center. We have 3 clinics and about 650 employees. And so it's very important that we connect, and our culture is a great one, but we also we're striving for excellence. And so that's why it's so important that we've partnered with you in helping us get to that next level.
Fantastic. And we're so excited about the journey ahead. I mentioned this. We were just on site at your organization this week. Courtney and I, as 2 members of the Capstone team, we were able to come on site and do what we would call Visit 1, which was our opportunity to kind of bring together the work over the last few months that we've been planning and getting ready for some teams to get started, some action plans in their hands, some things for the leaders to do. And so I'd love to start this episode by really looking back to everything that we've been doing to get ready for this first on-site visit, where we've got a team structure up and running and we've got to kick off to a leadership and change approach. So first I wanted to start with, when you were thinking about leading your organization and you just had a newly minted strategic planning process and some strategic priorities rose to the occasion. Can you speak to what those, big initiatives are that are top priorities in your organization that you're really hoping to get some major progress on over these upcoming years?
Yes. Yeah. So we did an extensive strategic planning process where we included our staff. We went through listening tours. We did some surveys, and then really worked with our providers as well and board to put all that information together and come together to find areas where we really need to focus our efforts. Because, you and I both know we can't do everything, right? We can't do everything on our list that we would like to get done. And so the things that we really focused on were employee experience, patient experience, access, and then we had some other things that we really wanted to focus on with the providers. when we met you, we already had employee experience and patient experience, which are part of your strategic focuses.
Yes.
And so those really aligned with what we're looking to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The experience is kind of our forte, patient experience, employee experience. It's kind of what Capstone is known for. And we're really excited about the work you're going to do too, related to improving access. And we consider that to be a patient experience type initiative as well, right? Because patients certainly are impacted when there's barriers or limitations or struggles with access. Their experiences certainly, and even their care can be impacted by that. So good for you to focus some effort there.
Yeah, I would say, we've been hearing for years about access issues because we have great providers here. And, I think we just haven't been able to get over that hump. And certainly the COVID threw a curveball in there. But,
Yeah.
The focus, we really have to focus on access and make sure that we're providing that for our community.
Absolutely. Yeah, hard to fulfill your mission to them and serve them if there's struggles to and barriers to access. So I loved when we were talking early about that as we were planning for that specific team that's going to be part of that. And even the leadership emphasis on that is, you said, I just want it to be that easy button that if somebody needs care, they hit an easy button and they know exactly where to go and it's easy for them to access it. And I just think that's a good vision for that, actually, is that easy button.
Well, and it certainly is part of our mission. Our mission is our mission and vision, I should say. Our vision is to be your preferred healthcare partner for life. Well, if we want to be preferred,
Yeah.
then we have to make it easy
Exactly.
for our community to access our services.
Absolutely. So if we were to look back in the last quarter, I know kind of the process we went through formally in Capstone language. We call our work with our partner organizations, which are typically small healthcare organizations like yours, most of them critical access hospitals like yours. But we have this process where we spend what we call phase one, about 8 to 12 weeks, doing some things to assess your organization, plan the team structure that aligns with your strategic priorities and the things you want to get done. Make sure we create action plans for the first year of those teams' work, assess your leadership development needs, get a plan ready for leadership development for that first year as well, and even start working on some things like some goal setting structures and some change models. So we've been up to a fair bit. From your perspective, kind of like this is maybe similar to things you've seen before and done before, in some ways different. Our approach is definitely our approach, and we might get ready for this kind of work differently than other organizations might. But what's your just general perception and reaction to what we've been up to over the last few months?
Well, you definitely keep us on track. I really appreciate that. I think in being intentional about the goals that we have, setting goals, there's a system in place that keeps us and aligns us. And I would even go back to just, our decision making, right? If
Yes.
partnering with Capstone, that was a process. And, bringing everybody along, it's really important that we bring people along and get at least buy-in and believe in partnering with Capstone is the right thing to do.
Mm.
Once you see the structure and the alignment with operations versus goal setting and strategic alignment, it just works and it makes sense. It's different
Yep.
for many organizations, but it makes sense that we're in this whirlwind and we have to spend time on strategic initiatives, experience initiative for us
Yes.
to be
Yes.
successful in the future. And as an independent organization, sometimes it's important that we think about the future. There's a lot of challenges in the
Yes.
healthcare setting as we know.
Well, the challenges, there's internal challenges and there's those external challenges. And as a CEO, you certainly have to be mindful of both. One of the exciting parts, I heard the excitement even before we got there as your organization was setting up what we call employee driven teams. So you'll have a steering team for those that aren't familiar with our model. You'll have a steering team that really oversights, and that's your administrative or executive team members plus the team leaders that are guiding your experience teams, which is for patient experience, employee experience, access, and an employee training and communication team. So in that early phase, we were setting up these teams. And in particular, the employee driven teams, while they're leader led, because that really helps keep them facilitated and connects them to how the bureaucracy works to change policies or access resources and facilitate meetings and get meeting rooms and stuff like that. But the majority of the members are employees. And I know you went through this steps to decide who was going to lead the teams once we decided which teams we were going to have, and then who would be on the teams from an employee perspective, and then getting those teams ready to start going to work. So I heard excitement all the way from Minnesota to Michigan, is what I heard before we even got on site, about the employees being excited to be invited to be on these teams. Can you speak a little bit about this approach of using employee driven teams and how just in these early, weeks, you feel the decision to do that it was the right one?
Yeah, I believe that's important to include those who are doing the work, the frontline staff who are doing the work in decision making. And sometimes, we as senior leaders, we can believe or think that we know the answers. We really don't. And so it's important that we engage frontline staff in that decision making. The second piece is we were really intentional about how we communicated with the frontline staff. So because of that, we had the director of the department actually nominate each of those individuals. And so that was really impactful for the frontline team members, that they were nominated by their own leader to be part of this new initiative that we're underway.
That right there, just that piece alone helps them feel very proud to be asked, right? And what we've discovered is that we always think our employees already wear so many hats, right? Especially in rural healthcare. Our leaders wear many hats, our employees wear many hats. And sometimes we think, can we really tap them on the shoulder to do one more thing? And will they say yes to it? And what we find is that they're really excited and honored to be asked, and they're more than willing to do things beyond their day-to-day job description to contribute to their organization getting better. I find that to be we only really work in small, usually communities, but I feel like they almost sense like they're giving to their community when they serve on one of these teams, not just their organization, but they're actually really making a difference to their community by being asked to help. So I heard that excitement from employees in your organization for sure.
Yeah, I think they're very excited to be part of the decision-making process and have an impact. Because I think sometimes you can feel that, hey, I'm just doing my job and I'm not making impact, which is untrue. They are certainly making an impact, but being part of the decision-making of driving the organization into the future is really a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Switching gears just a little bit, this is a podcast called Culture Change RX, and want to talk about that change word. A lot of organizations and a lot of leaders and a lot of employees, they'll own up to how hard it is for humans and groups of humans to change and to sustain change and to build on change. And that is one of the things that even early on in our work together, and especially with this first visit this week, we started to provide some background and information and concepts around change and how groups of people change and how we can, as the teams and leaders, help that really be successful. And it's always going to be a little bit of a challenge, but to prevent or overcome and recognize and work through those challenges is all going to be part of the progress. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot along the way, of some of those change struggles and how we identify and work through those. But what are your thoughts about what you've seen so far of what the leaders and the teams were learning about how to get better at change?
Yeah, I think we're all looking for ways to alleviate the stress and frustration of change. There are ways, and I think that's what you've provided us with, just an outline of how do we move things forward in a positive direction, and bringing people along, and that there are different stages of change, and
Mhm.
how the communication and bringing people together to make that change positive is an important part of how an organization can be successful. So I think there's been a need, and there's also been a acceptance, so that we as an organization have to be comfortable with change, and that's coming
Mhm.
from our leaders and frontline team as well.
Yeah, yeah. When I use the phrase, flavor of the month or whatever, is like that resonates with about any audience, we talk to, whether it's leaders, employees, about, all of those struggles where we try to do something and it's a good idea. It's a great idea. It actually is the better way, but it doesn't get better results if nobody does it the new better way, or not enough people do it the new better way. So it's pretty common to find most organizations in certain areas, or maybe across the organization, struggling with starting initiatives and then them really not coming to fruition and the intended results. So those are some of the barriers we hope to break through, is to really know that, gain confidence, I guess, maybe, Ben, is like gain confidence that when you embark upon a change, whether it's a team or a department, that you're going to find your way to the good results on the other side of it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think if you follow your mission and you're doing what's right for your community and your
Yes.
employees, you're in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, we talk about the work ahead is, this is how we team around here. So we got these teams and they're up and running and they got their first year action plans in their hands, and they've got resources and support to start moving into their first quarter action plans. We're starting to introduce the change concepts and model and tools and ways to move through change successfully. And then the other piece of that is the leadership part of this, and really strengthening and synergizing your leadership team. And we had a couple hours with your leadership team when we were on site this week, and we'll be embarking upon some leadership development and developing actually an internal process for ongoing development of your leaders, onboarding of your leaders. But this first quarter, so really moving into what's coming up next, our teams are going to be flying in this first quarter, and they're going to be moving through their action plans. And then we're going to move next quarter, really going much deeper into the leadership strengthening aspects. How much of that was something that really came out in your strategic planning process, Ben, about investing in development of leaders? Was that something that hit the plan and hit the priority list? Or is that just something that, because this model includes that is kind of a bonus or extra?
Well, we identified during the listening tours, and I've been with the organization for about a year. And part of that, being new to the organization, is understanding the needs of the organization.
Yeah.
And what we found by talking with leaders is that there was a real need for leadership development. And that was a key component of why we wanted to partner with you, with Capstone, is that you have that component, but also you have the strategic, implementation of a strategic plan, which has time and time again, we've
Mm.
had struggles with actually doing the strategic plan. It becomes
Hmm.
a piece of paper, or becomes something that we refer to, but not something we do. And so it's very important that we get off on the right foot by investing in our leaders, so that
Right.
they can become the best that they can be, the most productive they can be, while also moving forward with our strategic plan.
Yeah, yeah. Very hard to move an organization forward into the future without strong leadership. And I always think that when we invest in our leadership development and our employee development, we're really investing into the future of the organization. That's a very future forward, action to take, is to invest in our people, leaders, and employees. And you're not any different than most of the small organizations that we work with, is that you tap your best tech, you tap your best nurse on the shoulder and invite them to leadership when those roles open up. And sometimes they don't come to those roles, and most often they don't. With education in leadership and management, education or experience in that area. And so it's really on the organization to do that. And most healthcare organizations aren't built as education, venues for leaders. And so without that, they're on their own to do that. And that can create variation in how leaders lead versus synergy and how they lead together as an organization. So it is very strategic and it is very futuristic.
I would also add that I believe what we'll find is that when we teach our leaders to lead effectively, they'll be able to grow leaders out of their departments and teams. And so when we have somebody leave the organization or there is a retirement, that we have the leaders who have led and they've shown their teams the right way to do things. And so we have succession planning. And so it all works together. And so I'm so excited
Yeah.
to get started.
Yeah. That's such a good point, Ben, because you're absolutely right. And it'll actually happen in two places. So if you have a frontline leader that's leading in these, new evidence-based ways, getting better results, employees appreciate that in their departments, right? Like, wow, our department is well led. I'd love to be able to lead like that, or someday I'd like to be able to do that. But also on the team side is those employees that were tapped on the shoulder to be in the teams, they're going to be looking at the team leaders and they're going to be part of strategic, initiatives in that team as well. And so some of those rise up as well into leadership ranks. So yeah, you've got kind of a grooming ground in both places, the departments as well as those employee driven teams that are part of your initiative structure. And so, yeah, the future looks bright in that way for you as well. So yeah, that's such a good point. What are you looking most forward to, Ben, as we move from all of the planning and assessment work we've been doing and getting this all just ready to go? And now it's in the actual days of execution, like the first couple days. And in the next quarter, those teams are really going to be ramping up. And then after that, the leadership. So what's exciting for you about what's coming up next in this next quarter?
Well, I think it's working with the teams and also our leadership team and looking at the data, making data informed decisions. And that was a key point that you made and through the Capstone program, that we're looking at data to inform our decision making. And sometimes we can make decisions because it feels one way or another, but is really that the right thing to do? And so I'm looking forward to looking at the data, identifying areas of opportunity, and then setting goals and working towards achieving those goals.
I love you saying that you're looking forward to that piece. I know when we talk to the teams about that element of the work they're going to be doing, the data really helps us do two things. One, know what to work on. And number two, know if what we're working on is working. And so they have to get savvy in both of those things because they have to learn to plan long-term for their teams year after year. And they need to learn to study, adjust their action plans if they're not working. And the data is going to do that. But I know when we start introducing that to leaders and or the teams, they might be a little afraid or intimidated by that aspect. But it is one of those things that over time, it impresses us the most about how data savvy they get. Like it just really, at first they think they're going to need outside people to come into their team or their department to help them with that. And in the beginning, that might be true. But over time, they'll be so independent and autonomous in their ability to use data and make data informed decisions. So I'm glad you're excited about that. Right now, the teams and leaders may not be as excited about that, Ben, but hopefully they will over time get really excited about that too.
And like you said, it is over time. And I'm well aware, and we don't want to push people too far, but I do think you have to start somewhere, right?
You do.
Just start.
Yeah. Well, and it starts with transparency, of bringing that data forward.
Yeah. Certainly, certainly. So we'll work to support them as they go. They
Mm-hmm.
start this journey, and
Mm-hmm.
we know they'll get there as well.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the early things, just looking forward, just to get a little more granular too about, in particular, how this next quarter is going to go, is that all of the teams will be working together to do their part of pulling off and preparing for and conducting and then evaluating one of the first semi-annual training events that'll be an all-employee training event. And this first one is a little special because it'll kind of be a commitment and kickoff event for your experience initiative. And also, your organization has some conduct and courtesy expectations that we would call standards of behavior that really guide how we behave towards each other and patients and visitors and family and the like. And those, the employee experience team is going to be taking those and determining what changes might need to be made, and then creating like a commitment or a kickoff event to start the wheels in motion about elevating behaviors in the workplace, which is an important part of culture change. So that's kind of what's going on. Is like this first quarter action will culminate in that all employee event. And just to let you know, is usually after that excitement we felt with the teams and leaders when we were on site will then really spread into the whole organization. And the employees and those team members on those teams, they'll really spark that excitement in the entire organization through that event coming up. So that's what you can look forward to, Ben.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And then on the heels of that, then we'll be back on site again with what we call leadership immersion, which is 2 days of on site leadership training. We call it immersion because it really is. They're going to get immersed in 9 core leadership practices. You're going to start developing internal experts or people that are willing to be experts in those so that you have staying power. So that's really the look forward part of this, is doing all the preparation for that employee training event and kickoff and commitment event. And on the heels of that, really digging into the leadership aspect of this. So anything else you want to share with the listeners about what's happened so far or what you're looking forward to in this next quarter coming up?
Yeah, I thank you again, Sue. This is great because I think it's important for listeners to know. I mean, you're really building the foundation this first quarter, first maybe even into the second quarter. I feel like we're
Mm-hmm.
building the foundation to get toward the productivity and efficiency and goal setting for the future. And
Mm-hmm.
so I see it building,
Yep.
right? I see it building into what it needs to be for us
Mm-hmm.
to be successful. So that's the exciting part of this. The other thing I would share with listeners is that I feel like it's very important for us to have a great initiative champion
Oh,
to
yes.
really be a great communicator, not
Mm-hmm.
only with Capstone, but also with all of our teams, supported by our steering committee, really good relationships with our team leaders. And
Mm-hmm.
so we found a fantastic initiative champion who just happened to be our director of quality and risk, uh,
Yes.
and then great team leaders as well. So again, I'm
Yeah.
excited. Just all around, we have the right people in the right place, and we can shift as
Mm-hmm.
things come up. But
Yes.
that I think that was so important to getting us kicked off on the right foot.
That's so key. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Kirsten, as the initiative champion. That's one of the first things. We can't do this early work without a point of contact, and your initiative champion is the chairperson of your steering team, and it's a very important decision for a CEO to make of who is going to serve in that role. And yeah, you chose very well. And that was one of the earliest decisions to be made. And then the team leaders, and we got to meet all your team leaders in person when we were on site. And again, more great choices. So, and those team leaders and the initiative champion what's really great about that is we'll get to know them even better over time because we have regular monthly calls that they're able to get together with other team leaders across our partners. And so they'll get to meet more of our Capstone team. They'll get to meet more of the team leaders across other organizations that are doing the same thing in organizations very much like yours. So those are early big decisions. There's a way to support and help them be wildly successful as they move forward. So they'll be well supported while they say yes to these roles and take these on in the months and even years to come. So anything else that you want to just mention as we close up? Otherwise, I'll just thank you very much profusely for being willing to do this because I didn't ask you. We'd be on the podcast once. I said, will you do this every quarter during your initiative? Because our partnership is 2 years in phase 2 of execution support and then 8 to 12 weeks in the beginning to get ready to even start the execution. So thanks for saying yes and being willing to do this on an ongoing basis.
Well, I think since we're in this for at least 2 years, right?
Yeah,
So we have to be able to. It's a give and take, right?
It is.
We help each other out no matter what.
Yeah. And I think the audience will really appreciate definitely hearing about the wins, the successes, a little bit about the process and the steps so they can kind of follow the journey along with you. But also, I think they're really going to be curious about the common struggles and barriers and how they were identified and overcome. It is work. It is change. It's not going to always be easy, but our experience has been, it's always been very rewarding and even exciting and fun. And we'll certainly want to share that. But I'm sure people will want to hear about some of the struggles and challenges and how they were overcome. So probably more to come on that, unfortunately. But yeah, the idea is you grow as an organization as you grow through those opportunities too. So
yeah, we'll certainly be able to share some of the challenges that we've faced once we get into the next step.
Yeah.
And so next time, let's talk about some of the challenges and how we were able to overcome those.
Yeah. And of course, we'll celebrate the progress and the wins because there'll be lots of those. Probably the next time we talk will be right after either your kickoff event there and or your leadership immersion. Maybe both of those things will have happened when we talk next. So that will be a really packed episode if that's the case. So, well, thank you, Ben, for saying yes to this episode and future episodes. And really, thank you for your role as a senior leader in rural healthcare. I just want to take this public opportunity to thank you for stepping into that level of service in your community. It's often hard work. And thank you for saying yes and being willing to do that for your community and your community's hospital.
I appreciate that, Sue. It's the right thing to do. If we can do the right things for the right reasons at the right time, guided by our mission, I think we are on the right foot, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Thanks for your time today. I know that being a CEO is a job where your schedule's probably a little packed day to day, and I appreciate you giving up a little bit of that time on your calendar today for this conversation and for the ones to come. So thank you very much, Ben.
Yep. Thanks, Sue. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.